Hello, everyone. I'm Cadet Emily Rowley, your Professional Development Training Officer, and this is Aircast. This week, we will be discussing how to survive your first 2 years, the General Military Course, with Cadet Thomas and Cadet Steen. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
So, I know you're on co-op this semester, Cadet Steen. Where are you working and where are you?
Well, I am currently in the Akron, Ohio area. I'm currently working for a company called NMG Aerospace. They're a family-owned company. They started off that way, and now they're like a multi-million-dollar aerospace company, and they create aerospace parts for different bigger companies like Boeing and Lockheed Martin and Collins Aerospace, which are obviously the ones that we know of. And it's been super fun. I don't know.
That's great.
Yeah.
What is your job this semester, Cadet Thomas?
I actually don't have a wing job this semester
All right.
since I was supposed to be on co-op, but I ended up getting a summer co-op instead. So now I'm back. I do not have a wing job, but I am Squadron Vice Commander of our Arnold Air Society Squadron.
Awesome. Yeah, I asked you guys to come on today because I know that you guys have a lot of interesting perspectives and you're both 200s, and I think that you guys could offer some good narrative that would be useful to the 100s who want to get to where you guys are at and where I'm at.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, thanks for thinking of us.
Of course. Okay, well then let's get started. What did you find shocking when you first joined Air Force ROTC?
Honestly, I thought it was weird how much I vibed with the program, for lack of better wording. I mean, I'll probably mention this kind of throughout, but I initially joined just because my dad wanted me to. I really wasn't set on pursuing the Air Force or any military life at all. And when I joined, it was just so different from what I had initially, I guess, thought ROTC would be like, that I was just really shocked that everyone was so nice and welcoming, and that they were all just college students too, and that, they all just wanted to be in the Air Force, and that was kind of the end of it, I guess. Because I think that you see things on TV and it's whoa, that is intense military training. I don't know if that's for me, but I mean, we're not at the academy, so it's a little different.
Yeah, true. I have a few things that in common with you there. So for me, it was the difference in people's personalities from a locked on to a locked off environment.
Yeah.
So when I first came to RTC, obviously we saw everybody in a locked on environment. We didn't get the chance to know them personally, etc., outside of the detachment. And I was just amazed at how much different people are when they're not in the detachment in a PMT event. But yeah, it was crazy. That was my biggest shock for sure. Actually seeing them as a person and not more of a machine.
Mm-hmm.
No, that is so true. I remember the first time, I guess Lieutenant Maggie Miller now, when she first talked to me, just as Maggie instead of as Cadet Miller at the time. Yeah. And I was whoa, you like French? I didn't know that you liked French. I like French, and we just talked about France, and it was so cool. She wasn't yelling at me to do stuff. So yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I think that for me, I think, that initial part of that, everyone kind of talking to you like you're a machine, I think that was probably the most shocking part for me. It was just so intense. I think I'd never been in any culture like that before. And, there was just a lot of rules, and you had to be a quick thinker. And I'm kind of someone who likes to take a lot of time to think.
Yeah,
and
me too. Yeah.
it was hard. It was hard to get out what I wanted to say. Even in my FTP flight meetings, I am kind of hesitant to raise my hand because I'm okay, well, what am I supposed to say? Am I supposed to respond with one of the 7 basic responses, or am I supposed to just answer the question since she asked? And then by that time, 3 people have already raised their hand.
Yeah, that's what actually would happen to me today. I was trying to figure out whether like when I should not say one of the 7 basic responses. I guess when I'm getting asked a question and
Right.
like when to say one, or like I'm worried I'm gonna stutter or forget, because I'm a lot better at writing things down. Like if it's like a quiz format than like actually answering questions, which I should be better at answering questions, but I just don't want to stutter, you know?
Yeah. I much prefer the kind of written, because we have to do say the articles of the code of conduct out loud, and yeah, it's harder than just writing them out, because you have as much time as you want to think, or really as much time as they give you. But like even, you know, outside of FTP, I said this in the last episode that I recorded with Cadet Houston and Cadet Gaudino, but when I went to my first lead lab, I just did not want to be called on, because I didn't know how to raise my hand. I didn't know how I should address people asking me questions. I didn't know if I should stand at attention. I didn't know if I had to call them by their name, if I could just say sir or ma'am. And it was just like so much procedures. And, you know, once you get into the program, you learn those procedures and it comes more naturally.
Yeah, for sure. It does take a little bit.
I didn't even remember like the procedures. Like now that I'm thinking about it, that was so hard initially, and like now it's almost like second nature. Like of course I'm gonna salute people and say like good morning ma'am if I see them in uniform on a Thursday morning. Like that's just what happens, you know? So
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I struggle with giving, you know, the greetings of the day a lot, just because I have to look, who is it? And especially in this COVID environment, because if you see someone, one, you might not have ever seen them in person before, or two, you know, they're definitely wearing a mask, and you're going to have to decide, oh, well, who is that under that mask and under that baseball cap and in that black Air Force hoodie?
The big thing about the day for me, or like during lead lab, like the switch from afternoon to evening, I am so scared about messing that up every time we have a lead lab. So I'm just constantly looking at my watch. Yeah.
Like today, our flight meeting was from 1800 to 1900, but for some reason, I was still looking at my watch nonstop, even though it was evening the entire time I was at the detachment.
See, ours is from 1630 to 1730, so it's like right at that switch. And like we were coming in and
it's also hard when you're giving a brief at like 16:55 and then you're ending it at 1700.
That has happened to me before. Granted, it did not happen in front of like lead lab, which I was so grateful for, but like last semester as GMC, I'm sure Cadet Thomas remembers, we had the same position, just different semesters. But like when you have to go in to give that like mental health brief to each flight and stuff, and like I just remember there's one flight. I don't want people in the flight to remember this, but there was like one flight where it was literally like I said good evening to start, but it was afternoon, and then by the end of my brief it was evening, but I said good afternoon because I was like, oh well, I messed that up. Oh, it was so, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's okay though. I'm sure no one even remembers that. But
we kind of already transitioned into this next question, but I'll go ahead and ask it again, and we can reiterate some of the things we've already said. But what was the most difficult part about the program for you starting out?
For me, it was definitely learning about like the locked on and locked off environment, and really like getting it in my head when I could address people certain ways, and like even just like your way of talking. Like obviously this is a very casual podcast, but there's a certain level of course I'm calling you Cadet Raleigh and Cadet Thomas instead of by your first names and like stuff like that. And kind of like learning where you draw that line for different levels of events and stuff like that.
Right, and that line is really blurry, so it really just comes with experience, kind of knowing that.
Yeah, for me, I struggle with that too. I know I got like yelled at a couple times by one of the POC because I don't know, I would be too casual, because I'm just like, I feel like I'm usually a pretty friendly, like laid back guy, and then like as a 100, it was just weird coming in, and I was like, oh my gosh. But for me also, it's probably when I first came in, what was the most difficult for me, like paying attention to, was drill and probably volunteering to lead, because I was just so nervous. I didn't know anybody. I wasn't comfortable around anybody. It's like volunteering to lead when you don't really know what you're doing is like very nerve-wracking.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
That was something I wasn't comfortable with, that I actually got a lot more comfortable with my second semester.
Yeah, I agree with you, Cadet Thomas. I I also had a really hard time volunteering to lead. It's all kind of in your head, but your leaders are saying, this is a training environment, this is a learning environment, feel free to just volunteer, you'll mess up. But still, I was still very nervous to do that in front of everyone, just because I didn't know everyone, and I didn't want to look like completely stupid, especially in those kind of difficult on the spot thinking kind of tasks like drill and leading GLPs and doing impromptu briefs. I will probably be the last person to volunteer for an impromptu brief, just because I really dwell on my thoughts, and I thrive when I have time to go over those thoughts. But you don't always get that. You don't always get time, and it is a skill being able to think on the spot. And that's something that I've definitely improved on over my time here in ROTC.
Yeah. My second semester of ROTC for sure is when I really took in that this is my time to mess up. Like, this is my time to volunteer, because last semester, not as much, but this semester for sure, like, you're really going to get scrutinized for like, if you mess something up, because during FCP, you are supposed to know all this stuff because you've had a year and a half. In some people's cases, 2.5 years to learn all this stuff and take it in. So I'm really glad I actually started to raise my hand second semester of 100 year.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be raising my hand at drill hour this semester, because I want my practice. Yeah, you might be nervous, but you have to realize that when it comes time to do it, are you going to have enough practice to succeed in the way that they want you to? Are you going to meet your criteria? Are you going to meet those limits that they want you to be at?
Yeah, and like going off of that, I feel like I remember my very first semester, my 100 year, when I was initiating into Arnold Air Society. I was being pretty bold. I was trying to volunteer for things. And I specifically remember, Cadet Thomas might remember, because we initiated together, that I remember I was holding a position and I got so frazzled with the situation that they had presented in front of me that one of the candidate trainers came over to me and said, "I'm taking your position away and we're giving it to this cadet because they're leading and you're not." And that was literally, to this day, still one of like the worst feelings of failure I have ever felt in my life. Like, granted, it was just like Arnold Air Society, and it was all cadets who were trying to like, help me out. Like, of course, I'm a first semester 100. I'm not going to know how to lead. But I think that like you shouldn't be afraid of that, I guess, happening though, as much as I say that was still like an awful
but
feeling.
That feeling that you have, it's going to make you better in the future, and you're not going to want to mess up like that again.
Yeah,
exactly. And like knowing that, like feeling that failure and like feeling like, okay, well, I should not try and lead in this way anymore. Like you can even argue like it helps or develop your leadership style, because you'll know like what works best for you and what doesn't and stuff like that.
Yeah, failure is definitely a time to learn how to succeed.
Yeah, and you have to fail, because if you don't, then you're probably not diving deep enough into what you're learning to improve yourself. If you're not trying new things or improving, you're not failing. But you already failed if you didn't even try.
Yeah,
right.
It's a different kind of failure.
I agree 100%.
What is something about AFROTC that you really enjoyed as a 100?
The thing that I enjoyed most about being a 100 are, I kind of have like 3 different things. Extracurriculars, AFROTC sponsored events, and then kind of just being able to absorb it all in. Extracurriculars and AFROTC sponsored events kind of go hand in hand, I think, like being a part of AAS or joining Perishing Rifles or Silver Wings, or when we had it anyway, like FLX or Battle of Ohio, and participating in those events and those extracurriculars are so much fun and so rewarding, I think, because you're able to still like develop yourself as a cadet. And then you also get to like grow closer with the people in the detachment, and like you can get into those more locked off environments and really get to know them as people. And that's kind of what helped me through the program initially anyway, was like having like seeing those people in those environments, and it's super fun too. You know, shout out to AAS, like join AAS, you know. So but yeah. And then my third thing, just like being able to kind of take it all in as a 100. A lot changes as a 200, and we'll get into it a little bit later. But being a 100, I don't think I realized how lucky I had it. I didn't have as many responsibilities within AFROTC. I wasn't expected to like lead other people. I wasn't expected to know a bunch of stuff, even though you are expected to know that stuff. But I mean, it's only to a certain degree because you've only been here a semester or two. So it's not quite to that same parameter, I guess, as being a 200 would entail. So that was nice in retrospect. Enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure. Like for me, I can definitely agree about the extracurriculars. Like AAS, I had such a blast. Like first semester of 100 year with that. Not that you can do it any year, I'm pretty sure, but like as a 100 especially, that was amazing. Like I had so much fun during that candidacy. And I remember because they always said, like, this is going to be the easiest semester of your life, and then it's only going to get harder from here. You know, like,
yeah, no,
right.
I was like, of course I'm going to have time. Like, what are you talking about? And then, like, of course, it was like this past semester that I just finished, I was like taking a 19 credit hour semester. And for those of you who don't know, 18 credit hours is the maximum amount you get to take at UC. So like I had to petition to even take that many. So like, yeah, it's a rough life out there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm in 21 right now, and it's only starting out the third week when we're recording this, but it is so difficult to manage all of my homework and all of my classes and FTP on top of that. So.
Good luck.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that semester. I'm trying to talk to my advisor about moving stuff around.
For me, also, the amount of flexibility and mistakes that you could make without facing like harsh criticism, which we touched on before. That was also a thing I enjoyed as 100, especially looking back, because as we just said, it's the time like when you can make those mistakes, and it's like the easiest semester you'll have in RTC. So that was something I really enjoyed. Was their flexibility and their looking back on their kindness, like when we messed up, like they would help us figure out the right answer and not be too hard on us about it.
Yeah, and they really expected you guys to mess up, and they were really focused on making sure that you learned from that.
Yeah.
Right. I would 100% agree with that one.
Something that I really liked about 100 year was the flight meetings. I really liked getting to go every week and meet with, a smaller group of RTC cadets. I'm an introvert, so I kind of thrive more in smaller groups. So getting to go to those flight meetings and learning everybody's name, learning everyone's majors, learning why everyone was there, what they want to do in the Air Force, and building a smaller community within an already really great community was something that I really liked. I liked getting to go and talk to my flight commander and asking his advice. He was an aerospace engineer. Now Lieutenant Cooper, he was my first flight commander, and he was so laid back, which was kind of the opposite to my uptight demeanor when it comes to academics and RTC, and it really helped me. So I liked having that mentor, and I liked having that community starting out.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. My first semester, we were in the same flight with Cadet Smizer.
Mm-hmm.
He was very laid back. I liked having him as flight commander a lot.
He was similar too.
Yeah, no, Cadet Smizer definitely gave me a better outlook on academics, I think, because I definitely used to stress myself out, and like coming out of high school, it's like weird to say that I burnt out in high school, but like I totally burned myself out in high school. And so coming into college, I was like ready to kind of just do it all over again. And having Cadet Smizer as our flight commander was definitely good for me, I think, just because he definitely was telling me like, yo, Cadet Steen, you need to calm down and take it easy and just enjoy your time which
Yeah,
is
it's
something
really
I really take
good
to heart.
to have those voices in your head telling you, hey, this isn't as big of a deal as you think it is.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
What do you feel has changed from being a 100 to being a 200?
So I think that the biggest thing that's changed has been the level of responsibility and the expectation out of your performance in the program. Coming in my first semester as a 200, I hadn't held a wing job. I had held a job. I was public affairs officer for Arnold Air Society my spring semester, my 100 year. But with COVID coming in halfway through that, it was kind of not the biggest role because we stopped doing things. So there was not anything to post about on social media or take pictures of. So it was really kind of daunting coming into such a big role like GMCA of the 200. So all the 100s and the 100 GMCA is going to end up, they're all going to kind of be looking to you. And then you have to be able to like report to wing staff about how are the GMC doing? Because if they aren't doing well, you're their direct line to, I mean, that help. And so I think just like that responsibility, it seems really daunting at first, and it felt like such a weight. I think those first few weeks where I was like, wow, I am expected to do so much more now. If I miss a deadline, people actually, of course, don't miss deadlines, but if I actually miss a deadline, like people could be like in jeopardy of falling behind on their work for the program now, not just,
Yeah.
oh, you missed taking this survey. So just kind of that weight of people are actually depending on you now to do your job and do it well.
Yeah, GMCA is definitely a very important GMC job. I know it was one that I was always kind of scared of and hope I didn't get put in. But yeah, you have to stand up in front of your peers and you don't have anyone else there to tell you what to do. So props to you for doing that job.
Absolutely, yeah. When I was GMCA, it was a bit different because the semester before you, Cadet Steen, it was FTP semester for the 200s, and I was GMCA with Cadet Davis, and basically she had the FTP side of things with the 200s, so she was the GMCA for them, and I was the GMCA for the 100s. So it was a lot nicer just being like basically an advisor and kind of working with my class rather than also the 200s, because even in the forums, because we wouldn't do the forums together, the 100s and 200s, because we had completely different experiences, because FTP and like the normal semester are completely different. So
Right.
I would be with the 100s and she would be with the 200s, and yeah, I think I might have had it a lot easier than you could, Steve.
I wouldn't say that necessarily. You were a GMC as a 100. That's tough. So
Yeah, those are definitely tough roles.
But yeah, also the increased intensity of like training from going to your 100 to 200 year, and that transition into leading more than when you were following one with the 100 year. Not to say you're not following, because you're always going to be following, because people are always going to be above you. And I think that's also a thing that I am trying not to forget about as a 200 going from 100. Even though, well, we're still GMC, but I think it's important not to forget about the followership aspect, because that's could be just as important as the leadership aspect. And that's another thing that I saw change, was more leadership action. But the followership was still there. I just don't think it was touched on as much by us. You know?
I mean, to your point, though, I think that followership has been the biggest thing that I've been trying to improve upon this semester, because I'm a naturally extroverted, very bubbly personality, I like to think. And so I think naturally a lot of people, especially I noticed last semester, the 100s did kind of flock to me, for lack of better wording, I suppose, for guidance, especially within those first few weeks. And I had to kind of think about, well, if it's not my time to shine, then it's not my time to shine. I have to set a good example and follow people as well. And that it was definitely hard too, like having a 100 GMCA cadet army, shout out. She was definitely the best cadet to take on that role. I think her very first semester in ROTC, coming in and taking on a role of that capacity. But I definitely had some issues trying to like reel it in and be like, well, if she's leading this task of our job that we do together, I have to kind of follow her lead, because just because I'm a 200 doesn't mean that I don't follow whoever's in charge of the task. And so I think that that's also something that you see like as a 200 that can be a little difficult as well.
Yeah, those are really good points to make sure that you're still working on your followership skills.
Yeah,
as a 200. I think something that I noticed that changed quite a bit from being a 100 to being a 200. It's kind of similar to your point, Cadet Thomas, but you know, when you're 100, you are learning new things. You are pretty much learning everything from scratch, and you're really asking those 200s for advice. You're asking those 200s, is this right? Is this the right MatchCom? Is this the right way to wear the uniform? And you don't realize, you know, how much you've really learned that first year, but then you come in your next year as a 200, and now all of a sudden you have all these 100s who don't know anything, and they're asking you a bunch of questions. So when the semester started, I wasn't ready, I thought, to be a 200, be a peer leader for people in my flights. But then when, you know, they were asking me questions that I knew the answer to, I realized that I definitely can be a peer leader for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it helps you really realize how much you've learned. And, you know, even I'm a 300 now, and it still kind of feels like weird that all of my classmates are, you know, running the wing with the grade that was still GMC when I first started the program. So the 300s and 400s now. But yeah, it's kind of crazy to see how much we've grown. And, you know, when you're 100 or 200, you think, oh my gosh, I could never be OG commander. I could never be wing commander. I could never be XO. It seems like so much work. I don't think I could be able to do it justice for everyone. But then when you get the job, you realize you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a very fulfilling experience for sure, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't had too many crazy jobs. I've just been AO, and now I'm PDTO, but I'm definitely getting a lot of responsibility for this PDT aspect of the job, because as everyone knows, it's a requirement now to get PDT credit. So I'm going to be taking on a lot of responsibility and tracking that and checking over MFRs and sending out opportunities to the wing. So
yeah, absolutely.
the jury is still out. What opportunities have you had to grow your leadership skills these past 2 years? And you can also kind of touch on followership as well on this if you guys want to.
I think the very first time I had anything that was like big opportunity to grow was FLX, my fall semester of 100 year. That stands for fall leadership exercise, field leadership exercise.
Field leadership exercise.
Okay, yeah. So field leadership exercise, my fall semester of 100 year. That is awesome. I'm so sad we didn't get to do it this year. Hopefully we get to do it next year, and the 100s will be able to get that opportunity to experience it. But basically, it sounds so weird describing it. We went to like a paintball range, and they had all these different kind of, I guess, quote unquote, simulations and situations contrived. Yeah, scenarios. Thank you. To kind of simulate what it would be like to perhaps be in like more of a wartime environment, and to give you just like a high stress situation where you have to think on your feet because everyone's kind of depending on you. And I mean, the exercises range from like, okay, I have to lead my flight through a fake minefield, to like, no, like all of the GMC are being attacked by terrorists and we have to defend our base camp. And so that was huge because I had to learn how to address people in the right way. I had to learn how to listen to people and like do what they ask, which I mean sounds kind of stupid, but like it definitely is difficult, especially if you think, well, I would do it this way, but you can't if your leader asks you to do it a different way necessarily. I mean, you can suggest things, but it's the leader's call a lot of the time. So that was, I think that was the biggest thing initially. And I have a lot of other things too. I mean, AAS was a big growing opportunity, and holding my PAO job within AAS, and then obviously my GMCA job, which I've touched on a bunch. But FLX was like the first really big opportunity I remember.
Yeah, absolutely. FLX, dang, it feels like so long ago.
I know.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun during FLX as well. That was an amazing time. For me, it also a little bit of a smaller scale opportunity to grow. It was definitely the drill hours throughout 100 year. I feel like that really gave you a chance to lead what I feel like most 100s are uncomfortable with. And that was something that helped me become confident in drill and really feel like I know what I'm doing, and like the difference between line and inverted line and stuff like that. But also, especially this year, well, and GMCA, that was a great experience too, especially going to wing staff meetings and briefing them on stuff, which was intimidating at first, but it got nicer as time went on. But last semester, especially when I was the physical fitness officer's assistant, that was crazy. It was such a fun job, but really, when we started out the semester, we weren't really sure how to have the whole wing come to PT and have them all split up. So we didn't for the first week or two. We just had half the wing come on Tuesdays and half the wing come on Thursdays. And that was another weird thing because I had to act as a PFO, and then Cadet Rosenbaum had to get 2 other PFOAs to take care of the other cadets because we had to be so distanced. So we had to act as PFOs essentially, and we had to know all the verbiage and how to lead through PT. And every day by day, week by week, it was constantly evolving. And by the end, we had the whole wing there at PT on 3 different fields. And it was great. Like, we were still leading PTs. Like, I was still acting as a PFO of a field. And it was great. It was a great leadership experience, leadership opportunity. And I'm really glad to have done that because it's basically like a POC job, but I was a GMC, so it was really fun.
Yeah, that sounds like a good opportunity.
Yeah.
Stand up in front of the entire wing and yell out a bunch of stuff every morning that we go out there, and you just hope that you don't mess up.
Yeah, and the part that probably helped me the most, or that was the most challenging that I think helped me grow, was that at PT on my field, I was in charge, and that the thing I struggled with a lot was not telling POC what to do, but like leading them or guiding them. Like if they did something I didn't want them to do, sometimes I was afraid to tell them that because, they're POC. But eventually I learned that, I can't be afraid of that, especially if that's my job. Like Cadet Albert helped me a lot with that. Cadet Albert and Cadet Rosenbaum, they just constantly reminded me and like reassured me that like it's gonna be fine, like just do it, like it's your field.
Yeah, so, it's your job.
Yeah.
And it can be hard to find that it's another type of switch where you're now the leader of PT, so now you are calling the shots.
Yeah.
To that point though, I bet it was a lot less intimidating only having to deal with like 2 flights on a field of like in compared to like how we used to do PT where it was like all 6 flights on the field. Like I couldn't even imagine doing like 2 flights. Like I like couldn't even imagine. Oh, I can't even imagine. Like
what was interesting about it though is that I didn't always lead the same 2 flights. Like sometimes one of the PFOAs was sick, and like I would have to go to a different field. So I led every single flight in PT at least once, and it was weird. Like I started with Alpha, then I went to Alpha just 1 flight the first week, and then I went to Charlie and Delta, and then I went to Echo and Foxtrot, and then I went with Alpha and Bravo, and then back to Charlie and Delta. And it was just a lot of moving, a lot of weird, and a lot of different faces. But I'm glad I did it. It was a very, very good experience.
Yeah, and I bet everyone kind of remembered your face too.
Hopefully.
Right. Great way to get out in front of the wing, especially in the environment we're living in now. It's like
absolutely.
I know 200s who don't even know all the 100 just because they haven't had the opportunity to get to see them. So you're lucky you had that experience for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, some leadership opportunities that I've had this past 2, 3 years are so many. I've had so many opportunities. One thing that I think I've really had the opportunity to grow in was being in fights and having fight jobs, and you kind of got the opportunity to do everything because each week it just depended on who your flight commander was and what they decided, but you would either switch every week or switch every 2 weeks. And I remember just really kind of running away with that and making sure I was being creative. When I was a standardization officer in one of my flights, I made a standardization doc, and I still even use that document when I haven't put on a certain uniform in a while. I
Yeah.
just look it up and I read. It's just like a little cliff note on the AFI 36-2903. Yeah, and then like whenever I was servo, I made sure we did interesting things. I know one time my flight made blankets and we donated them to the hospital. We volunteered for Habitat for Humanity, and I made flashcards for academic officer one week, and then before leave lab, I was just quit giving people a flashcard and seeing if they knew it. And I'd just go around the flight. So those are like really, really small roles, but you really have the opportunity to make it your own, and what you put into it is what you get out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that really is the beauty of those smaller roles, because you have so much room to kind of like ebb and flow with what, like, between the very minimum bar that's set and like how high can you like push that and like make it the
Right.
best thing that you've ever done.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes it's hard because you might have a really busy week and you might not be able to do a lot, but you just really threw everything out the last week, and then your fight commander is going to be like, "Where are you at? What are you?
Right.
Where's that spirit at?" That's not to say don't give it your all, but it is going to be hard to balance other aspects of your life with those roles that you can kind of just make your own. How has finding your wingman helped you in this program?
Finding my wingman has literally been the thing that has helped me survive this program, I think. Cadet Rowley is in the same major as I, and so she knows that we're in a very demanding major when you pair it with ROTC. I mean, Cadet Rowley even said earlier that she's taking 21 credit hours this semester. And that is really tough on you academically. And then when you pair ROTC with that and you have to perform and lead, there is a lot of pressure, I think, that you can put on yourself. And having my fellow wingmen, whether they're in my major or not, just to kind of fall back on, to be like, yeah, I know what you're going through. Because the people in my major, they have it hard, but they're not in ROTC, or they might not understand what my aspirations are or what my goals are in the program. And so just having my wingman there to kind of lift me up and kind of like say, you got it, like you just keep going, has been really, really helpful for sure.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It really gives you a sense that like you're not alone, especially like having those wingmen in ROTC and outside of ROTC, like having like friendships outside of the detachment, like it really helps, especially when like you can see them more as a person, unless it's just a cadet and you have someone to talk to that understands struggles relating to ROTC and stuff like that. Whereas somebody who's not in it might not understand as well. And that's something that's definitely helped me.
Yeah, it's really something that you have to have if you're going to succeed in this program. I mean, even it's important your 100 year, but when you get into FDP, you have to make it as a team. If your team's failing, so are you. So you really have to figure out how you can be a wingman to your flight mates. But starting out, you need those wingmen to help you get through the program. I was having a really hard time waking up for a PT. I'm a terrible morning person. and I was late a few times, and I was really cutting it close sometimes. And eventually I found someone who would text me every morning to make sure I was up. And then even further down the line, I found somebody who would walk with me every morning. And it was just so nice to have that support in areas where I really struggled. And then, when you're getting that support, then you're going to be able to be in a position where you can help support others in areas where you're excelling. So yeah, it's necessary to have wingmen if you're getting through this program.
Oh yeah, absolutely. First semester 100, I'm pretty sure I missed at least one PT, and that was, yeah, I just could not wake up, I guess. I don't know, I slept.
It happens. It happens.
Yeah, no, even being on co-op now that like I don't have I'm not like on campus. I'm not going to UC right now, and I don't have any, not only just my wing, but not even like people from my school anymore to kind of be like, hey, wake up for class. Hey, wake up for PT. And I'm a terrible morning person as well in the same way. And so having to be in the office by 7 a.m., 5 days a week and work 8 hours, it's definitely fun. The work we do is fun, but getting up in time to make my morning coffee is definitely rough. So
yeah.
Definitely am missing my wingman right now to try and help me get up in the morning.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that wake up, smell alarm clock, get dressed, get out the door, and then once I'm there, that's when I start doing the other things I should be doing. Like when I was on co-op, I would just get my coffee while I was there, even though their coffee didn't taste very good. But that 5 extra minutes of sleep was really worth it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I had somebody that texted me as well to make sure I was like similar to you, but couldn't do that last semester because I also live half an hour away from campus. So sometimes I'll wake up at 400, sometimes I'll wake up at 0430.
Yeah, that is so early.
Yeah, I just
might as well just stay up all night at that
point. Yeah, gotta get some coffee and a little snack, like a banana or something, so I don't throw up. Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing that your wingman can do for you though is give you constructive criticism and feedback, and they can help you in areas where you might be kind of afraid to ask. Like if you gave a brief, you can just message your friend, hey, what did I do good about that, or what were some things that I could improve?
Yeah, of course I utilize that all the time. For
sure. Mm-hmm. It's definitely cool the way that my friendships have evolved within ROTC in comparison to like outside ROTC, just because, I mean, it's weird because as cadets, even we have that locked on, locked off switch between each other where you can hang out and be friends with one another and like go get dinner and joke around and have fun. And then you'll give a brief during lead lab and they'll text you and say, hey, just wanted you to know, awesome brief. Here are some things that I pointed out for you to improve on. And like, I don't think that outside of ROTC, you'd find anyone doing that. Like just texting you after you give a presentation and say, hey, work on this. But
because they don't necessarily even care that much how you did. But in this program, we want all of us to succeed. I want you to succeed. I want Cadet Thomas to succeed. So if there's something that you could improve in that brief, I'm going to let you know.
Right, exactly.
Was there ever a time you were unsure of this program being a right fit for you?
Absolutely. So I think I mentioned this before, but my very first semester, I was in the program because my dad wanted me to be. I was so dead set about not serving in the military at all. My dad served for 20 years in the Air Force, and he's a retired major in aircraft maintenance. So like he's literally like Major Henderson, but my dad. That's my dad. And so I was so dead set on not doing that because I didn't want people to think that I was, not paving my own path, because he now works in the aerospace engineering industry, even though he only majored in physics. And with me also majoring in aerospace engineering, I was really kind of hesitant to pursue anything that he did because I didn't want people to think that I was just doing what he did. because I wanted to be independent and kind of prove that. So much so that when my parents said, hey, you should apply for like the high school scholarship program through ROTC, I just didn't. Like, I just kept procrastinating it until the due date passed. And I said, oh, I guess I can't apply anymore, Mom and Dad, because I really didn't want to do it. And my dad, when he found out about the detachment that we had at UC, after I had chosen UC for their co-op program for, you know, working in like the civilian workforce, we went in and we talked to Major Henderson for a while. My dad really was excited. And so I said, okay, Dad, I'll do it for you. He, you know, commissioned in through AFROTC. So I figured I'll do it for one semester. It can't be that bad. And I'll just quit after that and I'll be on my way. But now I'm here and I earned an in-college scholarship last semester. So obviously my plan didn't work. That first semester was so crazy to me. And I grew so much. I mean, I remember at the end of my first semester during my final eval with Cadet Smizer, who was my flight commander my first semester. I remember he told me, yeah, when you first came into the program, I could tell you felt like you didn't want to be here. And I feel like that's really shocking for some people to hear that, wow, Cadet Steen didn't want to be in ROTC. That's crazy, because I think anyone who knows me now knows I'm very passionate about this program. All that to say, though, that first semester was really, really crucial in turning me into the person that I am today and putting me on the career path that I'm on now. Because coming into college, I really didn't think that was going to be the path for me at all. So if you're unsure, just stick with it until you get that gut feeling. And for me, that gut feeling was stay. You're going to do awesome things in this program. And I'm starting to kind of prove that to myself, which is super cool.
Yeah, that's really great.
I actually have a similar timeline to you. It started like before ROTC. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it because my best friend was going to the academy, and I didn't apply for any scholarships. I didn't apply for anything because I wasn't sure if I was going to do it, and I didn't want to be roped into something if I wasn't going to be happy with it.
Right.
So I actually decided I would do ROTC like a week or two before NSOP, I think, and after that, like, my first semester, I tanked. Like, it was probably the worst semester I've ever had academically, and it was just not a good time. So during that semester, I was really questioning a lot about school and ROTC, but Arnold Air Society definitely helped me a lot, because that gave me a little, I wouldn't say a break, but kind of a break from like academics.
Right, and it was still a lot of work, but it kind of gave you,
it was like fulfillment.
Yeah. And it kind of, I mean, it like exercises a different part of you, if that makes sense. Like, you're still working and your brain is still going, but the types of things that you're thinking about like leading people and, like following people and like problem solving, not like math problems and memorizing the periodic table and like stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but for sure, like after that semester, I really got tried to get my time management together, my organizational skills and stuff like that, because before second semester of 100 year, I did not have any organization. Like, I didn't have anything, no system, no plan, nothing, and that really, really hurt me. And it was.
But now you know.
Yes, absolutely, it's a learning experience, and so now I have multiple planners. I have planners on my phone, planners like written planners, and it all helps a lot, and like it helps me with my time management, and I work out my days and my weeks, and it also helps alleviate stress, and it's a good feeling. For sure.
And when you are juggling so many things, being a college student and being an ROTC cadet, it is very, very important for you to write things down, so that way you don't have to keep them all lined up in your head. You might forget stuff, but it's also very important for you to not always have to be thinking about it, and you write it down. All right, and now I know where I wrote it down. I'm going to go look at it when I need to recall it.
Absolutely.
For me, I kind of was super excited about joining the program because I wanted to commission the Air Force to set myself up for success in my career, and that was kind of why I wanted to join. But when I joined, I really didn't enjoy the culture as much as I do now, but I am one of those people who is just so supportive of myself and so sure of myself that I'm going to succeed in the end. I know that I'm going to fail along the way, but I know that if I don't give up, I'm going to end up where I want to be. But those first 2 semesters, I was just kind of thinking to myself periodically, I don't know if I'm going to get through this. I don't know if I'm going to want to stay in this. And there was a GLP one time that we did in Weed Lab where it was sort of a Socratic seminar, and we were given like a scenario, and then we had to decide how to react to that. And our goal of the GLP was for everyone to agree on one reaction. And then we were told what happened based on our reaction, but we weren't told what would have happened if we chose the other option, because it was supposed to be like real life and you don't get to know what would have happened if you did something else. So I was really taking the seminar very seriously, and I just was not on the same page as everyone else. And I felt like I was the only one not on the same page. But I mean, after the GLP, a couple cadets came up to me and told me, I kind of agreed with you, Cadet Rally. I wasn't completely on board with the decision we ended up going with. But during the GLP, though, I was kind of the only one saying, I don't agree with this decision. I don't want to do this decision. And, ultimately, though, I did have to go with the group, and we ended up going with something I just didn't feel good about. And after that, I was just really like, I don't think I fit in. I don't think I belong. I don't agree with them. I think that me not being able to get on board with the same decision that everyone else seems so sure about made me feel like I really didn't belong in the program. And I was kind of expressing this to my friend, Cadet Lewis, and she told me, well, maybe that's why you do belong in the program, because I didn't agree with everyone else. And I really took that to heart, and I've never forgotten it. And I have realized now that, we are all here because we are all unique, and the program would not be the same if any of us were not in it. We're all important because none of us are the same. And that's what makes our detachment so special. That's what makes our flight so special. And that's what's going to make the Air Force so special when we all commission.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that one.
What does finding your why mean to you?
So finding your why to me means finding the thing that's going to drive you to be unapologetically you every single day. Like just finding that drive, finding that passion, and finding that spark that just kind of ignites you and gets you going no matter what. Well, why do I subject myself to waking up at 5:30? Cadet Thomas wakes up at 4:30 on PT days. Like that. I mean, I know a lot of university students who definitely would not subject themselves to that. But I think that finding your why is really more about looking kind of deeper and thinking, well, initially my why was, well, it's going to make my dad happy, to kind of go back to my story. And then it kind of became, well, this is going to make my parents and my family really proud if I continue on this path. And then this past semester, it really turned into more of like this is going to make me happy. And like looking at the things that I've been able to accomplish and how much I've grown in this program, I like the person that I'm becoming. And so I think, just finding that reasoning and that introspectiveness to look kind of within yourself to figure out what drives you. And it doesn't even have to be ROTC. If you are looking at what is your why and ROTC isn't that passion and nothing is bringing you that why, go find something that does, because that's what's going to make your life worth living. I think
that's so true.
Yeah, especially in this program, it means persevering through all the struggles that it brings. And for some people, that means until their retirement. For some people, that means after 4 to 6 or 10 years. Otherwise, if you're in this program, the reasoning just seems hollow because you wouldn't really have one.
Mhm.
But yeah, like for me, a couple reasons I'm here is to help people, have fun, and be dependable. And those are three things that I think I can really stick with, and that I really mean and I take to heart.
Yeah, having those whys are so important. And I think it's so important to have that why am I going to commission and what am I going to do once I commission is really the backbone of your why, but it's not the only why. Like I said earlier, I joined because I want to set myself up for the career I want, and I've said in previous episodes that I want to be an astronaut, so this is the path that I want to go. But, there's other ways I could go. So that's just not enough sometimes to think about 20, 30 years down the line. Am I going to get to where I want? I don't know yet. But that uncertainty and, having to look so hard and far into the future really kind of dwindles and makes that why a little murky. So I think it's really important to have small whys. Like, why am I going to this flight meeting so I can get to know my peers and start, getting my wingmen and get advice from them? Why am I giving this brief? Well, I think I learned a good lesson researching about it, and I want to share it with everyone. Why am I volunteering to be the flight commander during drill hour? Well, I want to feel confident and I want to look good in front of my peers. You have to find a reason why you're going to do everything, because that's just going to make everything you do easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree.
For sure. I hadn't even thought of it like that, so that's cool.
Yeah, and also for me, I agree with the small whys. Like I kind of associate with small goals. Like I have sequential goals for me set for specifically ROTC in the Air Force. Like I want to get an EA slot and I want to go to field training and I want to get a pilot slot and then, I want to make it through UDP if I make that. But everything's not a sure thing. You're not for sure going to get your AFSC, and that's something that I think can burn a lot of people out.
Yeah, and you probably have that plane in your head that you want to fly, but you're never going to get to fly that plane if you don't tell yourself how you're going to get there.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some things that have changed about AFROTC because of COVID?
I feel like even last semester, there were a lot of things that I felt were just so different from my first year in the program. I mean, the biggest thing that stuck out to me was just like PT. And I remember asking my flight commander last semester, like, are we not falling in at PT? And the 100s are like, what's falling in? And, and I'm like, freaking out over here, like, oh my gosh, they're never going to learn. And my flight commander kind of had to sit me down and go, Cadet Steen, it's going to be fine. We're going to teach them what we can. And when it's better, they'll learn like all that stuff. And some of you 100s, like who are listening might even know like what falling in is, which is cool. But if you don't, that's also cool because like in the environment that we're in right now, we're not really able to do that. Or like standing at your cones and like doing your push-ups and sit-ups without someone counting right next to you or like holding your feet down and just like little things like that where you don't even think that those are things that would be, I guess, quote unquote, endangerment in a non-COVID, like before this pandemic happened. And now you're like, whoa, like someone cannot hold my feet down while I'm taking an official FA. It has to be a sandbag. And I didn't realize how difficult that was going to be until the day.
How they did it.
Yeah.
It was.
Every PT, I had to, me and a couple other cadets had to tow an 800-pound wagon full of sandbags down to Gettler.
Yep.
Back up after PT, and it was tough. That was definitely a change PT.
No, it was definitely so, like, that was just, for whatever reason, that, like, stuck out in my mind as one of the hugest hurdles of last semester was, man, like, how am I supposed to max my sit-ups for my official FA and bump up my score if I have to use a sandbag. Like no one. So yeah, but I mean, even things like MWRs and flight meetings being like virtual or hybrid, or I know that my flight last semester, Charlie flight, we were fortunate enough to remain like a pretty big flight throughout the entire semester. We didn't have too many 100s drop, which I'm very fortunate for, but that also meant that we had to split up our flight meetings so that we would only have maybe 6 to 8 people in a room at a time. And we had to kind of figure out how to rotate through so that we all got to interact with each other, but we couldn't interact with all of each other at the same time, which was very, very difficult for me, because I wanted to be able to understand our group dynamic, and our group dynamic was always changing because the people in the room was always changing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, those
a
were the biggest things for
a
me.
few other things that changed. Well, almost everything changed really. Like basically all the PMT events and the voluntary PMT events, PDTs. Those were professional development or training. That was those were all switched to either virtual or canceled. I know Cadet Kelly got the chance to go to jump school at the academy, but it was canceled and she never got to go.
Really terrible.
Which
she was very
sucks.
sad about that. And that's very sad. And like PT, as you mentioned, and different extracurriculars like AAS, we can't do our PTs on every other Friday, and lead lab and AS class. Like so much has changed. It's crazy.
Yeah.
This is, well, I was on co-op when this whole pandemic started, and then I was on co-op this last semester as well. And now that I'm back, it is weird for sure doing lead lab over video chat. It's a good setup because we're still making sure we're learning objectives and we're getting to brief. So that's really great, but it does take away a lot. But we are kind of getting to go back in person a little bit. So that's kind of cool. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to be doing for lead lab yet, but they're saying that FTP is going to be in person. So I'm definitely scared and stressed out about it, but I think it's going to be a really great learning experience for us. That in person is just so important. But yeah, just making sure that everyone's being safe and wearing masks and being 6 feet apart at least when we're in person. It's very weird.
Yeah, I'm definitely nervous about in-person stuff for FTP as well, but it's going to be good for us.
Yeah,
it's going to be good.
Yeah, I'd rather suffer not that I'm suffering, but I'd rather suffer now than show up to FT and not know what I'm doing.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that would be horrific. That would be such a bad experience.
What are some of your favorite memories as GMC cadets?
I have lots of great memories from being a GMC cadet. You know, when I was like kind of thinking about coming on the podcast, when Cadet Raleigh initially asked me, and the topic is like surviving the GMC, and it really made me realize like I've completed all my GMC semesters and I'm going to go on co-op and I'm going to come back as a POC, which really made me, I just wanted to share, like wow, it kind of made me like emotional. I was like, wow, okay, like halfway through the program, that's crazy. But I really, really enjoyed my AAS initiation, my first semester. I've kind of mentioned it. And I mentioned that I like had a major failure, like one of the hugest ones ever at that initiation. But it's really, really paid off. And it was so much fun. Some of the best friends and wingmen that I have in the program, I owe to that program and that night of initiation. And it was just, it's like so surreal just thinking about it. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it for any 100s that'll go through it. And I think some of the best memories just happened, I think, last semester, like being a 200 and being able to tell the 100s, yeah, I'm going to get to commission with you guys. And the kind of like the look on their face, like, wait, why? And I kind of had to explain like, well, I'm a 200, but I'm gonna 5-year program, so I'm class of 2024. And kind of like the look on their face going from like, so then are you like my equal? Do I look up to you? Do I ask you for help? Do I not ask you for help? Like, and like just kind of guiding them and kind of being able to, I guess, be a semi-mentor, but then being also knowing that I'm going to get to come back and be their peer as well is just so cool to me.
There is kind of a transition there when you definitely are, part of the grade you start out in your first 3 semesters, and then when I came back, I'm technically an AS 300, so I'm still part of my class. But next semester I will be an AS 300 class again because I haven't taken my fall class. So I think that's really when you start to go into that class behind you. But also, I mean, it starts now for me being an FTP, and I'm with all of those people in the class below me, and yeah.
And
Right.
the weird thing about me for that as well is that I'm also in a 5-year program, but I'm an FTP as a 200 this semester.
Yeah, lucky
so
you.
yeah, I'm happy. But yeah, it's gonna be weird commissioning with the class.
Yeah,
with the
it'll
100
just
class,
be
but
weird when when your class goes off and commissions and you're still here
it
for a
is.
year.
And it's also gonna be weird because I'm gonna be like a full-fledged POC member when they're going through FTP, and then eventually they're gonna catch up with me because I'm 2 years as a 300.
Yeah.
So
And I know
it is weird knowing that they're gonna catch up with you.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna be out for a couple semesters.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. Also, I mean, thinking about, there's a cadet on co-op right now, and like we all stay in touch with like our co-op group chat to make sure we all are like good to go and stuff. And she's on co-op right now and is going to be in my FDP class, but is going to commission with Cadet Rowley because of the way that her co-op program works.
Weird.
So yeah. Yeah. So it's just like weird the way I think it's really cool the way that our detachment is able to like work around those things, because I know that a lot of other universities have never even heard of a 5-year program. They've never heard of you taking extra semesters to do co-ops, and they definitely wouldn't even dare trying to mess with an AFROTC commissioning timeline like that. But that's kind of what makes our debt so cool, I think, is that we're kind of able
to have made it completely possible, so easy for us engineers to make it through this program.
Absolutely. Something that I think I definitely can take for granted at times, because when I'm talking to engineers at other detachments, they're talking about their like 21 credit hour schedules because they have to squeeze everything all into 4 years. They're not going to get any industry experience because they have no time to squeeze it in because their university, along with AFROTC, isn't going to allow it. And so it's just kind of really cool.
Here. Definitely important to have those breaks. I bet that helps a lot.
That, and like also just getting to go on co-op and knowing, what's it going to be like when you're an industry engineer. It's so valuable.
Yeah, sure.
Do you have any memories, Cadet Thomas?
Yeah, so for me, AS definitely Cadet Steen. That was amazing. It was so fun. But also the combat dining in ceremony we had at the Xavier Armory.
My gosh, I loved that. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, that was a great time. Went to the Xavier Armory, had the grog and all the flight competitions. Remember Cadet Weir Willie marching forward with the horse hat on. With the rest of her flight was stationary, and she was actually marching forward because she couldn't see.
I remember for our flight, because we were all in the same flight. I remember we had come up with that whole like stunt where like.
Oh yeah,
Cadet Rowley like taught me how to be a cheerleader kind of, and I had to like stand up on people's arms, and like it was a whole big thing.
Delaney now she's not in the program anymore, but we put you in a stunt because
because it was just so that was so fun. Wow. I was lucky. I got to stay away from the grog that night.
Me
but then
too.
I also left my coin there, and I don't have my coin anymore. So,
I never got a Veterans Day. The Veterans Day ceremony, I never got a coin from that. I went, but this brings me on to my one of my other favorite memories. I didn't get a challenge coin because I went to the regional conclave for Honor Air Society at Notre Dame University in Indiana, and that was a really fun time as well. Getting to like go to an extracurricular event that's kind of loosely tied to the Air Force, and it's really cool to hear, like, see the governing process of it, and like
Yeah.
get to hear guest speakers like generals and stuff like that speak. And that was also a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I've had a lot of funny and wholesome odds and ends memories. My first year at CDI, I was in Charlie Flight, and we never took a quiz the whole semester, which sounds impossible, but it's true. And then when we had to do our like Jody to the other flights, we were like throwing that in there. And yeah, the grog, so gross. Um, both years, it will never not be gross. And then the CDI that you guys, it was your first CDI, my second one. I got to be one of the people who did the Palmia ceremony. And I really liked that. And I remember the first time that I got to be American flag for posting and retiring the colors for lead lab. That was just such a fun, cool, surreal experience. You're just so nervous being up there, hoping that you call the right commands. Hopefully you don't call left face and you're supposed to call right face, and now you're facing the wrong way. Hopefully you call them to salute the flag before you get it out of the post.
Yeah, Cadet Stain and I actually finished our color guard candidacy last semester, and
yeah,
I don't know when we'll have an opportunity to post the colors, but
I was gonna say, like,
it's very fun.
I'm so nervous about like coming back in a year and like trying to volunteer for something color guard related, and it'll be like I'm supposed to know it because I've been in color guard for a year, but also like there's not been as many opportunities.
It'll just take practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you can go to some of the color guard meetings like in the fall semester if you're close. Don't know.
Oh yeah.
I might be up. I might be back up here in Akron. I just had a discussion with my boss today, so he's got to talk to the higher ups about me coming back. But yeah, it's all up in the air right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Another great memory that I really enjoyed was going to the Women in Aviation conference in March 2020 in Orlando, Florida. It was like at one of the Disney World resorts, so it was like in downtown Disney, and I even got to go to the Disney parks a couple of the days, and it was really cool. But I got to meet a lot of amazing people. I got to meet the first woman pilot of the space shuttle. Well, actually, I didn't get to meet her. I just heard her speak, Eileen Collins, and then I got to actually talk to Major General Jeannie Leavitt, who was the first female fighter pilot. And I even got to talk to and shake the hand of previous Secretary of the Air Force, Barbara Barrett. And she even told me, thank you for your service. This is something I will never forget. So, so there's just so many great things that have come from this program that I'm definitely going to always remember.
That is incredible.
Yeah, that sounded like such a fun conference. I remember reading that email that Lieutenant Colonel Schonkweiler had sent out saying that you got to go. And I remember thinking, wow, she got really lucky.
Yeah, and I learned so much, and it was just such an amazing experience. And I met lifelong friends that I'm gonna have to see again for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question. What's your guys' favorite quotes, and can you please explain it to me?
So my favorite quote is "The most effective way to do it is to do it" by Amelia Earhart. She's always just been an inspiration to me. She's obviously was like the first woman pilot to like fly across the sea and stuff. And I just feel like that quote is one of those quotes that kind of always gets me out of a rut. I'm kind of a classic procrastinator. As weird as that may sound, because a lot of people know me to be very organized, which I am. I just tend to not do my work. And a lot of times I just need a pick-me-up that's like, you can do it. You just kind of have to get going. And that quote always gets me going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I definitely struggle with that sometimes too. It's just that I think I've said this before, but the hardest part is getting started.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, I do the same thing. I procrastinate when I don't know how hard something's going to be.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, that's definitely something I'm going to keep in mind in the future.
Good, Steen. I also have a relatively short one. It's from Abraham Lincoln,
Ooh.
and it is, whatever you are, be a good one. And
Yeah.
Oh, I like that one.
I like that quote because it applies to me no matter what stage of my life I'm in, or anybody for that matter, because it's always going to change what I'm doing or what I am or like, you know, what's happening. And I like that quote to go by because right now I'm a cadet, I'm a brother, I'm a son, like whatever I am, I'm going to be a good one. I'm going to do my best to be a good one. And it's pretty vague, but like, you know, control the controllables, do what you can to be the best you can be. And that's something that I like to do, and it's very fulfilling, and yeah, it's a good feeling. So
Yeah, those are very good words to live by. Well, thank you, Cadet Steen and Cadet Thomas, for taking the time out of the day to talk with me today and, you know, give me a little bit of insight on how you guys yourselves have made it to this point in the program.
Thanks for having us on.
yeah, thank you so much, Cadet Riley.
Yeah, no problem. And if you guys have any questions about anything that we've said today, please reach out. We would be happy to continue the conversation and give you guys any advice or just let you guys know how we have made it to this point, how we've survived GMC.
Yes, absolutely. Always here, always available.
Even though I'm up in Akron, you can still reach out to me. I don't want to kind of fall away from the program necessarily. So for sure, same goes for me.
Right. Okay, Aircats. Well, remember to fly, fight, and win. And I will catch you next time on Aircast.